was whole eggs versus egg whites.
Mm.
Perfect, perfect for our discussion. One group of the young men ate whole eggs, same quantity, something like 6. The other ones ate egg whites, and to make it really good, they had them eat extra egg whites so the calories of the egg whites equaled that of the egg yolk. So they actually ate more egg whites in the egg white group, right? At the end of the study, they compared lean mass gains through a number of mechanisms, and they found again that the bodybuilders that ate whole eggs made more muscle gains than the ones that ate, only the egg white.
Hello and welcome to Castle's Corner. I'm, of course, Coach Castle, joined again by Jerry. He's always been requested by you guys, and I'm just busy and he's busy, but we have him back for another Mythbuster series. So thank you for joining us, Jerry.
Nice to be here, Coach Castle.
And now we were just talking about the late Doug Bignoli. As I'm sure you know, I've made 1 or 2 videos about this. And pretty soon, maybe Jerry will share a couple stories about him. We can get him on here for that. But for today's episode, we'll be talking about breaking myths regarding diet and nutrition. So the first one I thought we'd get into right away, because I've heard you speak on this several times. I know you'll have a lot to say about it. Is eggs are bad for you. You don't want to eat the yolk. You only want to eat the white. Eggs raise your cholesterol. Eggs are, all these things. So are eggs good for you? Are they bad for you? Should you eat the whole egg? Is there a limit to how many eggs you can eat?
Okay, the short answer is that eggs are good for you. Now, what they say, the negative statements about eggs. The first one, of course, the most common is the cholesterol content of eggs. I mean, each egg, depending on which textbook, it's funny how the textbooks, they can't agree with each other. They list different amounts. One textbook will say an egg has 200 milligrams of cholesterol. The next one says it has 300. Now, the American Heart Association has always recommended a maximum intake of 300 milligrams of cholesterol from food based on the notion that consuming cholesterol stimulates atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease. This is based on extremely faulty research conducted like 50, 60 years ago. It's all nonsense because, first of all, the body only can absorb a very limited amount of cholesterol. It's something like maybe 5%, 10% at the most. Some people have what they call a genetic polymorphism thing where they tend to absorb more cholesterol. And if you have a pre-existing illness where you tend to, well, it gets a little complicated, but it has to do with a lack of what they call LDL receptors in the liver. The name of the disease is familial hypercholesteremia. These people tend to have very, very high cholesterol levels. If they absorb greater amounts of cholesterol, for them, that is dangerous. They probably should limit eggs or maybe not even eat eggs. But there are now drugs that can treat that. Now, so you can eliminate the cholesterol problem. That's bogus. And second of all, they've done studies. This is interesting. People don't realize the word steroid. You hear steroid hormones, right? In fact, some people don't even differentiate. You have these layman riders. They'll mention he's taking steroid hormones, and then you read the article. It turns out they're talking about cortisol. Cortisol is an adrenal steroid, but it's not an anabolic steroid. It's a catabolic steroid, and it's an anti-stress hormone. It's released when you're under stress. But the point is, the word steroid refers to having a certain backbone in the molecular structure of the chemical. And the backbone is cholesterol. All steroid hormones, and that includes testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, vitamin D. There's probably 1 or 2 I'm missing, but all of these things are manufactured from cholesterol. Starts with the raw material of cholesterol, goes through a couple of enzymatic changes, and becomes the final hormone. So the point is that cholesterol is absolutely needed. If you ingested no food cholesterol, your liver would still make about 1,000 milligrams or a gram of cholesterol a day because it's essential to life. Besides being the raw material for steroid hormones, cholesterol is needed for your cellular membranes to maintain their structure. A certain amount of cholesterol is actually needed for brain function. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, some new studies have shown that if your, let's say, total cholesterol level drops very low, let's say down to like 100, these people are more prone to having degenerative brain disease like Alzheimer's disease. So there is such a thing as having too low a cholesterol, right? So the point is that cholesterol is an essential. So let's just move cholesterol out of the way. Let's talk about some of the other things. I know you probably read this. If you read anyone who's read my stuff for the last 40 years, and that's 40 years I've been saying this, which really bugs me is this notion that you should only eat the white of the eggs, also known as egg albumin, and throw away the yolks. The problem with that is many problems with that. First of all, when they say, if you look at the charts, it says the average large egg contains 7 grams of protein. But that and the egg is considered one of the most ideal amino acid balances. Previous to the existence of stuff like whey protein, egg was all other proteins were judged on eggs because eggs were considered the best protein source you can have based on its essential amino acid content and the balance of amino acids in the egg. But the important point that people overlook, that pertains to whole eggs, not egg whites. Half the protein in the egg is in the yolk, half is in the white. When you eat only the white, you're not getting the balanced protein. All these bodybuilders and athletes and people trying to lose weight who eat only egg yolks, they're not getting the quality protein that eggs produce. That's one aspect. Another, the ostensible reason for eating egg whites and getting rid of the yolk is because the idea that the white is almost pure protein, which is true. It is almost pure protein, but that's good and bad because it only has half the amino acid content of whole eggs is in the white. Second of all, almost all the nutrients that are found in eggs exist in the yolk, along with the cholesterol. That's true, and along with the fat. That's true. But now, just to single out one particular nutrient, there's a nutrient called lutein or lutein, depending on how you pronounce it. It's very good for your eyes. It helps protect your eyes. It supposedly helps protect a degenerative eye disease called macular degeneration, which is common in older people. It causes blindness, right? Well, I was watching a vegan, one of these hardcore vegan advocate videos the other day, and he was talking about all the sources, all the vegetable sources of lutein, various greens and this. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how come he's not mentioning egg yolk? Egg yolk has the most bioavailable source of lutein. The lutein that's found in egg yolk is something like 5 times more bioavailable than the lutein found in vegetables. But he never mentioned that. This is the problem. I don't want to get off topic, but that's the problem with a lot of these vegan. They cherry pick stuff and they don't tell you the whole story. But let's enough of that. My point being that when you throw away the yolks, there's another good nutrient in egg yolk, choline. Choline is very important for your brain. It's the raw material for a brain neurotransmitter that's closely associated with intelligence and memory called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the main brain neurotransmitter in the hippocampus section of the brain, which is thought to be one of the main seats of intelligence and memory. This is the part of the brain hit hardest when you get Alzheimer's disease. As a matter of fact, most of the drugs that are given to treat people with Alzheimer's disease work by inhibiting the enzyme acetylcholinesterase that breaks down acetylcholine. That's how important acetylcholine is, and choline is the raw material for that, right? Now, this leads to another problem with eggs. This is a more current problem. Turns out that 2 nutrients, choline and carnitine, are nutritional precursors for the production of a substance called TMAO. Now, TMAO, it starts out with TMA. The liver has enzymes. When you consume carnitine or choline, the liver converts either of those 2 nutrients into TMA. Then the TMA gets carried down to the colon, where the colon, certain bacteria will convert it into TMAO. Now, some studies have come out indicting TMO as a main cause of diabetes, cancer, and especially atherosclerosis. As a matter of fact, some researchers came out with studies saying that the idea that meat causes heart disease because of the saturated fat is wrong. They openly admitted it's not the saturated fat because, and this is interesting, this is stuff they don't tell people. The saturated fat and meat, the saturated fatty acid and meat, like stearic acid and a couple others, are not associated with elevated cholesterol levels. They're not. The saturated fat meat has nothing to do with atherosclerosis. So they had to move on. Now they're saying that it's the carnitine content of meat that, because it's converted to TMO, that's it. The problem with that is, first of all, there's not a lot of evidence for that. And there's other studies that completely knock that out. And if you are worried about it, there's certain nutrients you can take, such as there's a nutrient called pterostilbene, which completely disconnects the whole process of converting either choline or carnitine into TMAO. So that's another criticism with eggs. Now, as far as eggs still, they're not considered the number one protein. If you look on the biological value list, now the number one protein is actually whey. Whey is considered the best protein, all right? But as far as a food protein, an actual food, eggs is still the best. They're better than milk. And again, I'm talking whole eggs. There's no rational reason to discard the yolks. It's just plain stupid. Another criticism people or the people that prefer to eat egg whites, they'll say, well, I'm on a diet and I'm watching calories and the yolk has too many calories. Well, the whole egg has something like 70 calories, which isn't much. Second of all, then they'll say, well, I discard the yolk because it contains the fat, and a gram of fat has 9 calories per gram. And, when you get rid of the yolk, you're eating pure, egg white, pure protein. It's much better much easier way to lose body. Well, there's a problem with that because the fat that's found in the egg yolk, most of it is monounsaturated. Only 1/3 of it is saturated fat, and the type of saturated fat in the egg is again not the type associated with cardiovascular disease. So every criticism they make of the egg yolk is bogus. It's just it's transferred around by social media by these people that don't know their ass from their elbow when it comes to nutrition. And furthermore, there's been studies. This is what I was going to get to earlier. They gave old people. They had people like 60 years of age and older. They divided them to two groups. One group ate whole eggs. The other group didn't eat eggs. Otherwise, the diet was the same, and they did the exact same resistance training program. At the end of, I forget whether it was 8 weeks or 12 weeks, they checked them, and the older people that ate whole eggs made more lean mass or muscle gains than the people who ate no eggs. So the researchers scratched their heads and say, wait a minute, what is in the eggs that caused them? They're using the same training program, same level of intensity. Why did the old people who ate the whole eggs gain more muscle? And they at first they thought it was the nutrients, but they discarded that because the nutrients in their eggs are nice, but they're not, they're not that impressive to where it's going to make a difference in lean mass gains. So what they came up with was the theory, which is kind of funny, is they said it was the cholesterol in the egg. Because a lot of people, men and women, as you age, it's a common fact, your body tends to produce less testosterone. This is why men over 40, a lot of them go on testosterone replacement therapy. I believe it's after 30, your testosterone drops something like 1% per year, if I remember correctly. With growth hormone, it's 14% per decade. But the point being that the theory these guys had, which they couldn't really prove, was that the cholesterol in the egg actually served as a precursor for testosterone synthesis in the older people, and testosterone equals more muscle. In other words, if you don't have testosterone, there's no muscle build, and they think that's what they couldn't prove it, but that was their theory. Now you could say, all right, that's old people, but what about young people? Let's say a young bodybuilder in his 20s. Later on, another study did the same thing. One group of young bodybuilders didn't eat eggs, didn't eat whole eggs. Oh no, I remember this one was whole eggs versus egg whites. Perfect for our discussion. One group of the young men ate whole eggs, same quantity, something like 6. The other ones ate egg whites, and to make it really good, they had them eat extra egg whites so the calories of the egg whites equaled that of the egg yolk. So they actually ate more egg whites in the egg white group, right? At the end of the study, they compared lean mass gains through a number of mechanisms, and they found, again, that the bodybuilders that ate whole eggs made more muscle gains than the ones that ate, only the egg white. Now, to me, if I was a competitive bodybuilder, somebody interested or something like that, or somebody interested in building muscle, I would look at that study and I'd say, wait a minute, you know, are you whole eggs clearly produce greater muscle gains than egg whites? Why am I eating only egg whites? I question him. But these people are so indoctrinated
Mhm.
by the crap on social media and these pseudo experts telling them to eat egg whites that they continue to eat egg whites. They're like lemmings. You know those lemmings that follow each other over the cliff into the sea? That's
Oh, that's a myth too. That's a myth too.
all right. That's a
No,
all
those
right.
researchers chased him off the cliff specifically for that clip of footage.
Yeah.
That's not real, actually. It's been disproven.
Okay.
Sorry, but that's a myth too, and this is
All
MythBusters.
right. But it serves to illustrate an example. All right. Even if it's a myth, the idea is that these people mindlessly follow each other without stopping. There is absolutely no what is that called again? Uh,
Critical thinking.
yeah, it took it right out of my mind.
Yep.
Critical think There's no critical thinking skills at all. Because if you had critical thinking skills, you'd stop and think, why are they making more gains eating whole eggs than eating egg whites? There's got to be a different, and it's probably the fat and the cholesterol and the cholesterol because fat is needed for testosterone synthesis. If
Mhm.
your diet doesn't contain, I think I said this in a previous video, if your diet doesn't contain at least 20% of its calories as fat, you're not going to have your testosterone production is going to drop. This has been proven in a recent study. Now, there's two kinds of fat that increase testosterone. This is another ironic statement. The two types of dietary fat shown to increase the production of testosterone synthesis are monounsaturated fats, such as found in extra virgin olive oil, certain kinds of nuts, macadamia nuts, and other sources. And the other type of fat that maintains testosterone is saturated fat, the bad
Yep.
fat. In other words, the polyunsaturated, the omega-3, they don't do crap to help your testosterone. They don't affect it. Only those two forms of fat. In fact, the bodybuilders that have gone on fat-free diets, I'm talking about natural bodybuilding, not guys using drugs, anabolic drugs, when they lower their fat down to, let's say, 5% or less, if you check them after a month, they have like a 70% drop in testosterone synthesis. Of course, a lot of them are overtrained too, and that adds to it because if you overtrain, you get a cortisol testosterone ratio that's out of hand, and your
Yep.
testosterone also drops. So the point being that there's nothing wrong with eggs. Again, if you have certain genetic diseases like familial hypercholesteremia, where you lack LDL receptors, when you lack the LDL receptor in the liver, the cholesterol tends to accumulate abnormally. And that's a situation where, and couple that with an increased ability to absorb food cholesterol, that is dangerous. Those people really do have to watch their cholesterol. But it's something like less than what? It's like 5% of the population. It's very rare. For most people, there's nothing wrong with eggs. And I get a kick out of some recent studies if you go on, if you look at the headline says, eggs are good for you. You can eat eggs. And then you read the article. It was a study involved eating one egg a week. One egg is deemed safe. You can have one egg a week. I mean, who the hell eats one egg a week?
I
Who
don't
the hell?
know.
Show me one person who eats one egg a week. It
People who
was like,
don't like eggs.
yeah, it was like a couple of years ago. This older bodybuilder was bragging how he was very cut. He was bragging how he eats peanut butter, and I'm thinking, wow, peanut butter is 70% fat. How does he do that? Because to my mind, when I eat peanut butter, I eat half a jar, and that's
Mm.
that's God knows how many calories. And I'm thinking, and so I looked at his diet. You know how much peanut butter he ate? A teaspoon. A
Oh,
teaspoon of peanut butter. And he's bragging that bragging about eating that's insane. That's
it's
nuts.
just silliness. But anyway,
Anyway,
so I think we beat the horse of the eggs to death. The next ones are all kind of related, so I'm going to give them to you at the same time, but we'll break them apart because I mean they're literally all related. So, myth number one: it is a really bad idea to miss breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Myth number two: you don't want to have a large meal before going to bed. And myth number three: immediately following your workout, you must have a protein shake. So, I mean, I'm sure you can see how these are all related. But yeah, let's break those
okay,
up.
let's take them one at a time. First one about not missing breakfast. That's a debatable issue, believe it or not, because there are a number of studies saying that, for example, people that go on intermittent fasts, the meal that's most commonly skipped is breakfast. and it has no ill effects on them whatsoever. No ill effects have ever shown up by doing that. Other studies show, there was one study that came to mind, a recent study of women showed that they had one group of women that skipped breakfast, the other group had a regular breakfast, included protein and carbs, and they were engaged in a resistance training program. The women that ate the breakfast had gained significantly more lean mass than the ones that skipped the breakfast. So that you could say is in favor of eating the breakfast. Well, go ahead.
But
You have a question?
do you remember from this study, just out of curiosity, but do you remember from this study, you said they were doing the resistance training, but the time of day kind of matters in that because, you know, if they went to exercise and they didn't have breakfast and they went to exercise at 10 and one had breakfast and one didn't, one's going to have a lot more energy for their workout than the other one. You follow me? I'm just curious.
Well, the breakfast was in proximity to the meal, something like about 3 hours after the meal. So
The workout was.
workout, yeah. Did I say break? I meant the workout. So yeah, you're right. The calories and stuff that did contribute to the lean mass gains. But it depends on the individual. I mean, I wouldn't say breakfast is absolutely essential. If you don't want to eat breakfast, don't eat breakfast. But there's other studies showing now in relation to fat loss. They've compared eating breakfast with not eating breakfast on the total number of calories consumed by the end of the day. And as you know, people, and this relates to one of the other things you just mentioned, a lot of people think that eating one particular meal, if you overeat calories, it's going to make you fat. But that's not the way the body works.
Mhm.
But I'm hearing some sort of cat screaming out there.
I
Anyway,
was wondering what that was. Well, they're fighting. It's something, mating maybe.
sounds like an animal. But anyway, the point being that uh, the way it works is that as far as fat synthesis goes, it's the total number of calories accumulated, let's say by the end of the week, that determines. You don't get fat immediately. In other words, as a matter of fact, people, I think I mentioned this once before, there's a weird effect. If you're eating normally, let's say, and you decide to go to one, they don't have them anymore, they're gone now, but they used to have these all you can eat buffets.
Oh,
You
yeah.
pay a certain amount, you could just stuff your face. I went to them a lot myself when I competed. I had a junk day, I called it. I used to go to all you can eat buffet. They threw me out of a couple of them. But anyway, the point,
Talking too much while you're eating.
oh, I just, oh shit, that's my dog. Hold on a second.
Oh, go save Bruno. What happened to Bruno?
Hold on. Hold on.
Hold on, guys. We're just saving Bruno real quick. Something's up. Bruno's his adorable little puppy. Well, he's old. He's not a puppy, I suppose. And I'm just taking my nightly pills here. It's 9:30 p.m. where I'm at. Eastern Standard Time. It's a little bit different where Jerry is. But yeah, don't forget to take your pills, guys. Oh, here we go. Let's find out what happened to poor Bruno.
Oh shit. Oh man. I think he hurt himself. He jumped off the bed, man.
Oh no. What happened? What's he look like? Is he all right?
He seems to have trouble standing up. I have him here. Hold on. Oh man.
You need
What's
to
the matter,
go?
Bruno? Hold on, let me see. Hold on. Well, let's give him a couple of minutes and see. He jumped. It's a high bed, and he's a little old guy with arthritis. I hope
He's got to get a stairs or a ramp or something.
no. He was screaming. I was wondering what the hell that was.
Poor Bruno, shit.
You all right, boy? He's breathing real heavy. You okay? I hope he didn't break his leg. Jeez. All right, well, I'll give him a couple of minutes. He's in my lap. Well, anyway, I'll try and continue here. So,
Keep an eye on Bruno though. Yeah, I mean it's fine. If you have to go or something, by all means just go. Don't worry. It's fine.
okay. I don't know what that. Yeah, I was wondering where that was coming. Anyway, jeez. Okay. Hold on. You all right? Anyway, let him calm down a little. Anyway, so can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, bud, if you can.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that body fat synthesis is more like a weekly thing, and they found in studies, for example, I was talking about the buffet. When you overeat, if you're eating, let's say, normal caloric intake, and you go to a buffet, you overeat, your body actually kicks out more insulin like growth factor 1 somehow to compensate for the overeating. Insulin like IGF-1 is an anabolic hormone, And, they found that you don't get as fat as you think you might have gotten, so, but my point being that it's a weekly thing. So breakfast, I would say, is up to the individual. I mean, some people feel better, on breakfast, and the whole concept of breakfast. The word breakfast is derived from break fast. In other words, when you sleep at night, your body kind of gets lower in glycogen, and the idea is by eating breakfast, you help replenish some of the carbohydrates. You okay, bro? I hope he's okay. Jeez, I just tried to put him down. He couldn't stand up.
Poor little guy. Shit.
He must have really slammed himself, man.
Yeah, gotta get some stairs for the bed. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really easy to maybe just a 2x4. I mean, a 4x4 with a rug on it or something up against the
I
bed.
shouldn't have. I mean, you don't usually when I put him in the bed, he falls asleep. Like he must have gotten up and just jumped. He's blind, so you
Yeah.
can't see. He might have fell off the bed. You all right? He's quiet now. Hopefully he'll be all right.
I'm sure he's
Jeez.
feeling better just being with you anyways. Shit, poor guy.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, he's blind and deaf, and he's like, he's 22 years old. I mean, that'd be like a 90-year-old man jumping off a 6-foot story building. Jeez. Anyway. Oh shit, one of his legs. Oh, hold on. Oh no. One of his legs, there is something wrong. Hold on. You right? You right? Oh man. Okay, I thought maybe he couldn't have. I thought it was broken. I don't know. I'll just watch him a little bit. If I have to, I'll take him to the emergency room. You know. Anyway, so what were we saying? Oh yeah, we were
So
talking about
let's
the.
just, well, just real quick to, in summary, long story short, it seems to be very individual. It definitely, in my opinion, anyways, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people, they do better workouts when they have more calories. And also the next point I was going to make is people like me, I like to have a big meal before bed. So I usually am not hungry when I wake up because I've just usually had like 2 hamburgers or something before I went to sleep. So I'm not terribly hungry in the morning, but I'm also still digesting that food. So I wake up with energy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that goes to
Well,
the next myth is you shouldn't have a big meal before bed, I guess.
right, yeah. Well, that again goes back to what I was saying about, the total number of calories. I mean, there's nothing particularly fattening about eating that's based on the myth that if you eat a meal before you go to sleep, because your metabolism goes low and the calories have nowhere to go but fat. But that again is based on the idea that fat is formed immediately. I mean, which is just not true. That's just BS. That's just wrong. So, I mean, if you overeat, like I say, over several days, it's not the late meal that's making you fat, it's the total accumulation of calories. Now, that being said, some people, you said you eat a big meal, some people that eat a large meal, it would cause insomnia.
Mhm.
But that's a problem. That's not related so much to the food content. Well, it is related to the food content, but maybe there's something, when you eat meals, some people they get a little, let's say, an extra stimulation of catecholamines, norepinephrine. These are brain stimulating substances. Some people are more sensitive to it than others, and it'll keep them awake. On the other hand, if your meal contains carbohydrate, you're going to kick out insulin, and if the meal contains some protein, there's an amino acid called tryptophan. The insulin will transport the tryptophan into the brain where it becomes serotonin, which is a calming hormone that stimulates sleep. So again, it depends on how you react to all these various nuances of the nutritional content of the meal. So that's the basis of that. But to my knowledge, I do remember writing about this years ago for the bodybuilding magazines about late night eating. And I looked at the existing research at the time, and all of them were in agreement that there's nothing particularly special about eating a late night meal that'll make you obese or prevent loss of body fat. None of them said that. There was not one study that said that. So maybe they've come up with something since then. This was quite a while ago, but I haven't seen it. You're right, Bruno? He's not whimpering at least. I hope he's okay. Damn, it's scared the hell. I never heard him make that noise.
Well, I'm sure he fell, he was hurt, and he didn't know where you were, and he couldn't get to you. So poor guy. But
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But let's wrap it up real quick though, because I want you to get back to Bruno. So if you could, just the very last one that we mentioned, we've actually addressed this in other videos, so you can do a short version of it. And that's the need to have a protein shake immediately following your workout. There's actually a very large window if you want to get into that. Just briefly though.
Yeah. All right. Well, there was a researcher named John Ivy in Texas about 20 years ago, or maybe a little later than that. He came out with a study showing that if you ingest a protein and carbohydrate drink right within a 2 hour, it had to be within 2 hours. He called it anabolic window was the term. Within 2 hours after a workout, you got something like a 37% greater degree of muscle protein synthesis, which might equal a greater degree of muscle gains. Later on, though, it was shown that if you give a protein like whey contains amino acids which independently. The reason his reasoning, I should mention before I go on, his reasoning was adding carbohydrates to the protein increased the release of insulin above and beyond what the protein alone would do, and that would equal, that would push the amino acids into the muscle, and there's your, greater muscle protein synthesis. But later on, they showed that just the whey protein alone contained enough insulin stimulating amino acids that you didn't need the carb. The carbohydrates were not necessary to reach, let's say, maximal insulin levels, right? And then further research showed that that muscle protein synthesis following resistance exercise occurs over a 24 to 48 hour period. Now, that doesn't mean that if you want to take a protein drink, like I still see people at the gym, they actually keep their protein drinks in their lockers or in their car. They down it as soon as they walk off the gym floor. If you want to do that, that's not bad, but there's no real advantage to it. I mean, if psychologically it makes you feel better, whatever, that's fine. But if you think that it's going to help you build more muscle, yes, it will. But in other words, if you waited, you'd still get the same effect. And so again, it's 24 to 48 hours. So what the current research suggests is having the recommended amount of protein, which is 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Have it in small meals, based maybe every 5 hours if you can, of course, except when you're sleeping, in that time period, and you'll maximize muscle protein synthesis. Now, an interesting thing happened a couple of years ago. They found that people with less training history, the muscle protein synthesis tends to peak in the 48-hour period, but those with greater training history and older men actually peaks earlier, like 24 hours. So for those individuals, it's better to get more protein a little bit quicker, not necessarily 2 hours right after the work, within 2 hours, but in the day following the workout, you want to ensure that you get enough protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis. And that's what the current research shows. But again, if you want to take protein drinks, like I've seen people taking protein drinks while they're working out. I don't know what they think they're doing.
Well, they're putting blood in their belly and they're taking away from their workout is what they're doing. I mean,
exactly right.
and they're upsetting their stomach.
I asked one guy why he did that, and he said he felt that the taking in the amino acids while he's training would have an anti-catabolic effect and help prevent excess muscle protein breakdown. I don't think that really happens as far as I know. I mean, it does. I mean, protein synthesis ceases when you work. There's none going on when you're working out. So, I mean, it's not going to really affect that,
Yeah, I can't keep up with all that nonsense. There's too much of the nonsense. I hear so many
Yeah, but
crazy things.
this stuff, it never ends.
It
I
doesn't.
mean, guys like you and me, or who try and cast a light on all this nonsense, it doesn't seem to help. I mean, we could say this for the next 40 years, and people can continue.
Well, you're proof of that. You've been saying it for
Yeah,
40 years already.
I haven't said it for 40 years, but I'm a lone voice in the world. Well, there's others that say the same thing. But
There's
I
a
mean,
few.
it's a confirmation bias or something. They just refuse to believe that, not, throwing away the egg whites, eating only egg whites is the way to go. You could show them a ton of evidence. It makes no difference. It's kind of parallel with this COVID stuff. I mean, I don't want to get into the country, but this vaccine, I was talking to a guy in the gym the other day, and he overheard me talking to somebody about the vaccine. And he says, I don't mean to interrupt, but a friend of my girlfriend, he was in perfect health, nothing wrong with his heart. He took the vaccine and dropped dead of a heart attack the next day. And I heard of another case, the same thing happened. Healthy guy, nothing wrong with his heart, and he dropped dead right after the day after he took the vaccine. And I said to the guy, I said, you heard this secondary through somebody else, right? He says, yeah. I said, do you know for a fact that these people had no occult cardiovascular problems? They had nothing wrong with them, and they took the vaccine and it killed them. He says, yeah, that's what they told me. I said, well, let me ask you this, common sense. Do you agree with me when I tell you that billions of people around the world have taken the vaccine? He says, I guess so. I said, if what you're saying is true, if it was that toxic where you take a person who's healthy with no health problem, no heart problems, takes the vaccine, will drop dead the next day, that should be happening with everybody. Now, if they had something wrong with their heart, then there might have been some kind of interaction. But you can't tell me a person who has no occult health problems, heart problems, if the vaccine was that cardiotoxic, every person who took the vaccine should have dropped dead, and it just didn't happen.
Now
So
this is, I was going to say it's actually getting close to a sensitive subject. But
yeah.
what I would say is, and you hear this all the time when somebody dies, I'm sure you've heard this many times in your life, is he looked so healthy. She exercised and ate right. And I'm like, okay, but did you see their insides? Do you know if they had genetic anomalies? Did they have pre-existing medical conditions? Like you can't say somebody looked healthy and fit and ate right and they had no reason to die. That's you don't know what's inside of it.
Well, you want to know a good example is that our good friend Doug Brignoli.
That's what
I
I
mean,
was just saying. It's just getting
I,
close
I,
to a sensitive subject.
my first thought when I looked on Facebook and it said Doug Brignoli has died, the first thought to my mind is this is one of the last guys I would expect to die suddenly like that. I mean, if you see him in person, he was a healthy guy. I know the guy. I've never seen the guy with body fat. He's always been lean. He's a natural, very skinny guy naturally. He started out like a beanpole when he started training. He was skinny as a rail. He's a naturally thin guy who built muscle. That's the way most champion bodybuilders are. They start out thin and build muscle. It's a huge advantage because they have fewer fat cells. It's another story. But the point being that, I didn't see any outward signs of any illness in the guy. Then I read something. Actually, he did I guess it was an interview where he mentioned that he had just had what they call a coronary calcium scan. This is when they scan your coronary arteries for calcium deposits. It's considered, if you have excessive amounts of calcium, it's considered a harbinger for a future heart attack. He had a high calcium score, and he wasn't sure why. He also had one or two other abnormalities. So Doug, again, I haven't seen any autopsy.
I'm
The only
waiting to, yeah.
yeah, the only thing I could tell you is when they said he was found face down dead on the floor in his apartment.
Yep.
Somebody dies like that 99 times, unless he was shot or took poison, it's always cardiovascular. The only thing that can kill you that fast is cardiovascular. Not even cancer does that, cardiovascular. So he died obviously of some sort of cardiovascular thing, but again, he's a good example of a guy that looked great on the outside, no clear signs. As far as I know, Doug didn't eat junk food. I mean, he was a smart guy.
He
He
was
knew
very healthy.
he knew what he was doing. I don't
But
know.
I would also say just because I mean it seems you don't know this actually. I would say this. So he put up a post. Literally, he said, "I'm going to take the vaccine to show everyone how perfectly safe it." You might have seen this. How perfectly safe it is, and if I live, then it's fine anecdotally, basically, and if I die, then you have your proof. And this is why it's such a big thing right now, and why
Well,
we're all kind of waiting for the
all,
autopsy.
all the anti-vaxxers jumped on that, but if you look at the date of the post, it was a year and a half
It
ago.
was February. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I
And if
responded to. It was a long
and
time
if
ago.
And if you read the entire post, he was posting that because he said he had researched it. That's what the beginning said, and he was convinced of the safety, and so much so that he got the vaccine himself, and he was making a facetious statement: "If I died tomorrow,
Yeah.
you'll know it." In other words, he was positive that nothing was going to happen to him, right? And it didn't for a year and a half.
I've
If the
had, yeah,
vaccine
but so I was gonna say, I've had something like 100 people email this to me, and I just copy and paste the same reply to all of them, you know. Sorry, you were
again,
saying,
it's the timing.
yeah,
Again, it's the time. I mean, if the vaccine is going to give you a heart attack, it's not going
within,
to take a year. It's not going to
yeah,
happen in a year and a half.
I
Come
would
on, man.
even, a time frame, I would even stretch the time frame. What do you think? Like 3 months out, possibly? I mean, you could
You
stretch
know,
it a while, but a year and some, no.
it's hard to say, but a year and a half is out of the question. Whatever caused his heart problem, it wasn't the vaccine. I'll tell you that right now. It was not the vaccine. And I've seen studies of cases where people swore, that statement I made earlier, oh, this guy or this woman was healthy, nothing wrong with them, nothing wrong with them. And they
Yeah,
took the vaccine, and within 2 days they were dead, right? All right, then the medical researchers actually they looked at the autopsy. That was bullshit.
yeah,
These people had a lot of things wrong with them. A lot of times these people were like this far away from having a heart attack. They were in bad shape. They had occluded coronary arteries. They're completely blocked. A lot of times they got the heart attack. Maybe I'm not going to rule out one thing though. Taking the vaccine is a form of stress. In other words, when you take the vaccine,
that's
what it,
true.
what it does is it stimulates your immune response. That's the way it's supposed to work. It has a kind of a imitation of the spike protein that's on the COVID virus, SARS-CoV-2 virus. And what it tries to do, it inveigles itself in the immune system, so more or less prepares your immune system so that when it encounters the actual virus, it can respond with an immune response that hopefully, maybe even if you get infected, at least you won't get infected to the extent where you have to go in the hospital or die. That's the way the vaccine's supposed to work, right? But the point being that there is a period of inflammation in, let's say, 24 to 48 hours after and people feel it. Sometimes they get a headache. Sometimes they get extremely tired. All that is actually a good sign, because that means that's your immune response. Your immune system is acting just like it encountered the real virus. Because if you got the real virus, you'd get those same symptoms. But it is a form of stress, right? Now, if a person is teetering on the brink of death, like somebody with a really bad heart or something like that, that actually stress might be too much, and it might push them over the edge, and they actually could die. But in other words, my point being, you could say it was partially due to the vaccine causing the stress, but it was actually the main cause was their pre-existing condition. They were in such bad shape they were ready to go anyway. That's my point. I think that happens in some cases. I do believe that. And it looks
Well,
like the vaccine.
I was gonna say also, I'm gonna be curious with the autopsy if they say if he had an enlarged heart or not, or any enlarged heart valves for that matter. I mean,
Well, the odds of him having an enlarged heart are almost certain, because he started training when he was what, 12 years old or 11, I forget.
mm,
And you know anything about the anatomy of the heart, the left ventricle, the heart's a muscle.
mm,
So when you engage in resistance exercise, to compensate for the increased need for the need for increased blood circulation to the muscles, the left ventricle enlarges, because the left ventricle is the pumping part of the heart. That's the part that pumps the heart. In fact, when most people get a heart attack, it actually is in the left ventricle, because there's a certain coronary artery that feeds the left ventricle, and if it gets blocked, or a piece of plaque breaks off that's in the coronary artery, blocks the blood flow to the ventricle, that equals either a heart attack or a ventricular fibrillation, and you die. So, but my point is, it always enlarges, just like when you train your arms, train your chest, train your leg. What happens? The muscle grows to compensate for the imposed stress. That's the way the heart, it's called Starling's law, I believe, in cardiology. Your heart responds to the stress. But the key point about this it's not considered pathological because even though the heart is enlarged, it's stronger. In other words, guys with enlarged hearts who are like runners or people who've been working out, you'll find they have lower pulse, resting pulse, because their heart is so strong, it pumps more blood with each beat than a weaker heart. Now, there's a pathological form that happens, it's called congestive heart failure. This is people usually caused by long-standing high blood pressure, where it causes a weakening of the heart muscle. There's no compensatory effect of the heart. That is very bad. And people, unfortunately, 40%, which when I read this figure, it shocked me, to be honest with you. 40% of older people, people over, let's say 60, have congestive heart failure. And I believe it's entirely related to a long-standing lack of physical activity combined with very poor diet choices, because there's no reason why somebody should slip into congestive. It's the same with sarcopenia, loss of muscle. You know, if you don't work out, if you don't do some kind of exercise, particularly weight bearing or resistant exercise, you hit about, starting about 50, your muscles are going to gradually disappear. Your fast twitch fibers will be replaced by slow twitch, which are weaker fibers, and you're going to lose your mobility. You're going to become frail, and when it gets really bad, in 6 months you're dead. That's the way it's use it or lose it. It's the same deal. These people have. I tried to say this repeatedly in my applied metabolics. The human body is a machine. I mean, if you take a car, a new car, and you don't drive, you leave it in a garage for 30 years, it's going to turn to rust. Everything's going to fall apart. It's got to be moved. It's got to be used. That's the way your human body is. It's a machine. It's made to move. It's made to be used. And if you don't do that, you're going to inevitably suffer the consequences. That's the way it works.
And I mean, again, I would really hate to speculate again and even speculate after the autopsy. But I mean, suffice to say that, I mean, it's a really sad thing, but I mean, we already knew he had the calcium deposits. He was putting massive stress on his life as it was. Well, again, I think it matters, well, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact that he already had, let's just say, a large heart and he was taking anabolics, I mean, that can't be good.
Yeah. Well, do you know that for a fact that he was taking antibiotics? I don't know.
I probably shouldn't say it like that.
I heard he was.
We were talking a lot, and let me put it this way, it's not my business to discuss it, but he was preparing himself for several things.
Okay. The story I was told was that, he was going to, first he was going to guest pose, 62 years of age. He was going to guest pose at one contest, and then later on, maybe 2023, he was going to compete in a Masters Miss Universe. That was going to be his last final competition. And I was told that he took steroids to gain a little extra muscle size. That's the story.
It's not my business to be discussing, and but he was preparing himself for several things that you would typically need to take these things for, or would help.
Now somebody might raise the question. No, let's assume that he was, but again, speculation. But let's assume he was taking steroids, right? And he had that pre-existing, excessive calcium in his coronary arteries, or possibly some other heart defect that we don't even know about. Would taking steroids make it worse, possibly to the point of causing his death? Not directly, indirectly, yes.
I think indirectly as well, yeah.
Especially because of his age. 62 years of age, with let's say a buildup of atherosclerosis, excessive calcium in the coronary arteries. Taking steroids lowers your HDL, which helps prevent that, raises your LDL, which stimulates further occlusion of the arteries. And again, as active as Doug was, it's like putting oil on a fire. I hate to say it. And I don't know, do you know whether Doug did aerobics of any kind? I don't know. Do you?
He did cardio, but we had very different ideas of cardio, let's put it that way. He liked to do short, intense cardio usually, or he would just like walk very briefly. My idea of cardio is maybe an incline treadmill for 45 minutes at a good pace, something like that. So
Well,
Keep again, your heart's the most important muscle in your body. I mean, I hate that this is, well, I hope, we don't know if it's an example of it yet, but I say it all the time. The heart is the most important muscle in your body. Fuck your biceps. And if your heart goes, you're screwed. So guys,
that's
just
true.
more reason to be doing your cardio, more reason to be paying attention to your diet.
Well, I agree with you as far as the length of time for cardiovascular exercise, because the ostensible reason why do people do aerobics, let's call it, for two reasons. One of them is cardiovascular health, which is absolutely true. Second reason is to burn fat, right? Now, the problem with the high intensity interval training, which you were referring to, that's probably what Doug liked to do. I mean, they talk about workouts as short as 12 minutes, 10 minutes. In other words, you know how it works. You do start out slow, and then you increase the intensity to something like 80-90% of maximum heart rate. And then you do that for about 20 seconds, 30, and you bring it back down, and you do this a couple of times, you know what I mean? And that's your interval. And some research shows that doing 20 minutes of that style training equals 60 to 90 minutes of steady state aerobic training, right? Now, the problem is that, I still think that for most people aren't going to do that right. I've seen them in the gym.
So they don't do it right.
You don't do it right. High interval training, I have trouble with it.
And
I
by the
have,
way, a bike is the best for that, by the way, using an
right,
elliptical or a bike. It's very difficult to do that on a treadmill.
right. I use an elliptical. I have tried. There's some days I'm short on time. I'm running late. I don't have time to do my full 30 minutes of cardio. So I'll try and do a high interval intensity. And I use an elliptical machine. I can't do it. I can't do it. After about 5 minutes, I'm done. I can't. I got to get off. I
Well, not
can't do
only
it.
that, but those kind of, sorry to interrupt, but those kind of things, they completely neglect a lot of the reasons I do cardio, for example, the strengthening of my bone structure, for example. That's one of
Right,
the reasons I do cardio, specifically the way I do it. Training my glutes, for example, training my
right,
psoas. I mean, these are all reasons I do cardio. It's not just the heart. There's a lot of good reasons for it, and you have to do a long time. And of course,
right,
low intensity cardio, your body prioritizes fat, not
right.
glucose.
Now,
So again, makes more sense.
I saw a interview just the other day with Dorian Yates, 7-time Mr. Olympia,
Hmm.
and Dorian's always been a believer in high intensity training to
Hmm.
failure, short workouts. He mentioned that for all his Olympians, he never trained more than 4 times a week. Workouts 20, 30 minutes. It's all true. And he lifts very heavy weights to failure. Blah blah blah. And so the guy said, what about aerobics? He said, well, I treat my aerobics the same as my weight training, high intensity intervals.
Yeah.
And then he held up a book. He says, and the name of the book was The 1 Minute Workout. It was about and the book claimed that you could get cardiovascular benefits. I know that book because I've read it, so
I
I'm
never
familiar.
read it.
Yeah,
What's it called
it's
again?
The 1 Minute Workout, and it's about high intensity. What the book says is you can get cardiovascular benefit for only a minute of high intensity training, high intensity interval aerobics. Now, unfortunately, Dorian took it the wrong way.
Oh,
He believes, based on that book, that 1 minute is fine for most people. The truth of the matter is, 1 minute is not enough for anybody. First of all, because if you look at the nuance of how you're supposed to do high interval aerobics, it's several bouts of high intensity, low, high intensity. You can't do that in 1 minute. You'd only have one thing. It's not enough. What the book says, that refers to a study where they took people that were completely out of shape, never did any exercise. They wanted to see the minimal amount of exercise that would show some benefits, like increase insulin, increase insulin sensitivity. Sure enough, remember, these people were trained by scientists. They knew how to do it. These people with only 1 minute of high intensity interval showed increased insulin sensitivity. But here's the key point. The scientists pointed out that was minimal. That was not optimal. That was just to prove a point.
was
How
beneficial. Yeah, okay, if there's a benefit, cool.
right. Now, they were just trying to show how effective it could be. Even 1 minute control, but it wasn't the optimal amount. The
No.
optimal amount was like 15 to 20 minutes, not 1 minute. So Dorian mentioned that he did for his contest, he did 10 minutes of aerobics. And I maintain that 10 minutes aerobics, if he was doing for cardiovascular, he did 10 minutes of interval. Yeah, he was probably getting some cardiovascular, but if he was doing it for fat burning, nah.
No, I also
It's,
heard him. Yeah, but I also heard him say in multiple interviews, on Joe Rogan and another one. I can't remember another one he was on. He also said that he walked his dog all the damn time. And I mean, that's a lot of walking. And when you are covered in as much muscle as he was covered in, just doing a
yeah.
walk like that is actually cardio, I would think.
Okay, now here's well, Arnold likes to say that he gets a lot of his cardio from riding his bike, right? And there's truth to that. If you ride your bike and you walk your dog, you can get some cardio benefit, but that is continuous walking,
Yeah,
and it has to be at a certain pace.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
walk, like my dog, this little old guy,
Poor
he
little
can't walk.
Bruno.
He just takes 4 steps and stops. That's the way he walks. I could do that all day and whatnot. I won't get any cardio benefit. Now, when he was younger, he had a lot of it. He would walk, he would speed. I couldn't even keep up with him. That would get cardio benefit. It depends again on the intensity. If you're walking fast enough to get your heart rate up to a certain amount, or you're riding your bike, I've seen Arnold ride his bike. He's riding in traffic, he's riding casually. He's not getting his heart rate up. He
Uh,
if he calls that cardio, he's in his own world. That's not cardio.
But those
Now,
guys were also those guys also dieted like crazy. Like every time I've ever heard them speak about their diets, they're both always talking about like literally fantasizing about food, freaking out about their diets,
right,
being starving for hours at a time.
yeah,
You know, that
true,
that's not a good, I mean, in my opinion, that's not a good way to do it. I like to do things
right,
really slowly, but they like to do like 3, 4 competitions a year and shit sometimes. So I mean, I get it,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's true. But I mean, if you said to me, well, I want to just work my cardiovascular system, and my goal, I'm going to prefer fat loss to be centered on my diet rather than my exercise, which is true. That's the way it should be. But if you say to me, I only want I want to improve my cardiovascular benefit, I would tell you, do the high intensity interval training. For cardiovascular increases, it's it's greater because it actually is more progressive. When you do steady state aerobics, like let's say 30, 40 minutes, usually you're doing the same pace throughout. And after a while, your heart kind of gets used to it. You're not really pushing hard. Just like with weights. If you use the same weight all the time, you're not going to gain anything. You have to do something. You have to either increase the poundage or, and I just wrote about this in Applied Metabolics, they came out with a new study showing that you can get the same muscle gains. They compared a group of bodybuilders that they did the same exercises, diet was the same. One group, when they trained, increased poundages at regular intervals. The other group did not increase poundage, but increase reps.
Mm.
Increase
Going for the
reps.
sarcoplasm, yeah.
Right. Guess what? They both made the exact same gains.
Well,
So
that's
the
because
point being,
there's. Well, sorry to interrupt, but I was literally just writing about this myself. All the new
yeah,
studies on hypertrophy, and there's multiple different ways to go about doing it. And I mean, it's really interesting when you actually start considering how to apply this because it's almost endless. Basically, you can just continuously keep applying new cycles to get hypertrophy when you understand it. It's pretty fascinating. Oh,
yeah.
while I got you paused though, we should probably get you to plug yourself because we do got to wrap this up.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Would you mind?
Okay.
And we've got Jerry on every one of these podcasts plugging himself, guys. But I always ask him to because of how freaking important I think it is. So listen up, guys.
I have a publication. I now call it Applied Metabolics. The original name was Applied Metabolics Newsletter, but I always had a problem with that because most newsletters are like 2 pages of crap. People send you their schedule where they're going to be. That's what a newsletter. This is not a newsletter. This is more like a digest, or actually, it's most comparable to a monthly ebook because it's 30 to 50 pages every month. It's like an ebook every month. And I cover a large variety of topics: nutrition, exercise science, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy like testosterone therapy. I'm going to write an article pretty soon about how testosterone therapy has to be individualized depending on the person. All men shouldn't get the same testosterone therapy. Very few doctors even know this. This is like new information. And that's the thing about applied metabolics. I cover stuff you're not going to see on the average website. You're not going to see it in videos. Some of it overlaps. I'm not going to say you're not going to see any of it, but most of the stuff I write about is you're not going to find, because a lot of it not only comes from evidence-based science, but also I feel funny even saying this, 62 years of study and experience. I started this when I was a kid, and I've never given up. I've studied, I've read, I've self-taught myself. Plus, I have the experience in the gym. This can't be duplicated by other people. They can't. I was working out with some of these other guys with publications. Were not even they weren't even a memory in there. They weren't even eggs yet. These guys. So so like I'm way. And I'm not saying the other publications are bad, but these people are, a lot of them are like, they have they're like academics. All of them have PhDs and this and that, and they can't get away from their academic style of writing. So their writing is very dry, and unless you're really into the science, it's very hard to follow. Now I'm into science, and I got to tell you, I've read some of these other and I have trouble getting through it because it's very dry. I write in a magazine style for Applied Metabolics where I make it entertaining. I'll talk about training with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I try and make it a little bit informative and entertaining at the same time. In other words, I don't leave out the facts you need, but I try and make it interesting. And so, like I say, it covers all those topics. And I believe no matter what, you're a smart guy, and I think you'll agree. You probably learned stuff from reading my newsletter. Am I right?
I've been reading your stuff for I think over 8 years now.
Yeah.
Most of my nutritional knowledge that I routinely use and advise about, I got from your newsletter. I mean, I
Good.
routinely send my clients to subscribe to you. Again,
Right.
there's no comparison.
Well,
You're awesome.
well, see, you're a good example. You're an educated, smart guy who nonetheless still gets benefit and learns something. And I say it myself. Every time I research an art, I'm learning myself. Every time I pick a topic to write about applied metabolics and research it, I always learn something I didn't know. Every single article. So, because there's always stuff to learn. The learning never ends, like they say. Another common cliche, which is true, and I think you'll agree because I know you're into this, knowledge is power.
Mhm.
Meaning the smarter you are, the more well-informed you are, the more well-informed you are, the less chance you are to being suckered into buying shit products, making training mistakes. That's your best defense against all the tons of garbage that's on the internet. If you know the truth, you'll be able to wade through and you'll be able to know. I mean, 90% of the videos I start to watch on YouTube related to training and diet, I turn off after 5 minutes because they start spouting bullshit. I'm not going to waste my time. I don't have that much time to watch this crap. If I catch them saying crap, I turn it right off. I'm not going to waste my time because I know what the truth is versus the nonsense. Most people don't. I mean, if they have the fancy graphics and the guy looks good, he has a six pack, that's enough for them. They'll believe what the guy says, even though what he's saying is completely wrong. That's a big mistake, and they're going to pay for it. The people that
Mhm.
believe people, they're going to pay for it by you know injuries or not making gains, wasting their time, or worse off, sending these people money for crap products. That happens a lot too.
It does. But anyways, Jerry, let's wrap it up for the day. I'm going to ask you to come back again next Saturday if we can make, or
Oh,
next
wait,
Sunday if we can make that work. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
before I forgot to mention, if anyone wants to subscribe, it's www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's always up. You can go there anytime to subscribe. And I also want to mention that if you're a subscriber, I have a private Applied Metabolics Facebook page where each day, every day, 7 days a week, I put new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general medicine. It's like having a second newsletter almost, and it's only for subscribers. And also, I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage where current subscribers only could send me short questions, anything they might have read in the newsletter, anything that comes to mind related to nutrition, exercise. I'll try and answer that as an appreciation of the fact that they subscribe. So that's just like added bonuses for subscribing to news. I just want to mention that.
See, Jerry's even more accessible for me. You guys got to wait till I check my emails 4 or 5 days a week. I mean,
Yeah,
he's more accessible than even I am. Jesus, thanks, Jerry. I've never done that. I just always email you directly. Maybe I should do that.
yeah.
But anyways, we're gonna try to have you back on next Sunday for a different kind of episode. Actually, I'll be talking about.
General medicine. It's like having a second newsletter almost, and it's only for subscribers. And also, I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage where current subscribers only could send me short questions, anything they might have read in the newsletter, anything that comes to mind related to nutrition, exercise. I'll try and answer that as an appreciation of the fact that they subscribe. So that's just like added bonuses for subscribing to news. I just want to mention that.
See, Jerry's even more accessible for me. You guys got to wait till I check my emails 4 or 5 days a week. I mean,
Yeah,
he's more accessible than even I am. Jesus, thanks, Jerry. I've never done that. I just always email you directly. Maybe I should do that.
yeah.
But anyways, we're gonna try to have you back on next Sunday for a different kind of episode. Actually, I'll be talking about this week. I think you're gonna like it though. And
Okay.
I should also say, because I don't think I've said this on camera yet, I know I've told you, but you're the one of the main reasons I actually started writing is because you made me think I could, actually. So you're one of the main reasons I started writing, actually. So thank you for that, Jerry.
Good,
And
good. I'm glad.
I'm 4 books in now. Jesus, plus I don't know how many freaking articles and stuff. So
Hey, listen, the more well-informed people that write books that actually, teach people the truth, the better. The better that they'll all be. So I'm all for it. You know what I
I
mean?
couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
Please, if you can, please keep me updated on Bruno. I'm just curious. Well, we're
yeah.
still on the podcast, but keep me updated about Bruno if you can. And
Mhm.
I'll say goodnight now, buddy. Thanks so much for everything. Thanks for taking the time to do this as always. I really do appreciate you always taking your time
Oh,
for these
here's a
things.
quick update on Bruno. I
Yeah,
just put him on. He's walking a little wobbly, but at least he's walking. I thought he might have broken his leg because the
but
way he
he's
was walking.
walking okay.
So if I see any changes, he's going right to the vet. But that
Yeah,
was
keep
my.
me.
I always put him on the bed, but I don't know why he jumped off this. It's a very high bed,
Uh,
and for like I said, him jumping off that bed is the equivalent of a 90-year-old man jumping off a 6-story building. Because he has arthritis in his spine and his legs. So I fucked up. I shouldn't. I'm not going to do that anymore.
well,
But now
at the moment, anyways, everybody, Bruno's okay. Just so we all know,
yeah,
I'm actually feeling better knowing he's walking right now. I'm not gonna lie.
me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But thanks again, Jerry, and we'll be talking soon.
Okay, good to see you. Good to talk to you always. Take care. Bye bye.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo,
Yeah.
no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me. But they hate from inside, you see, hate themselves as society. So I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do better, work hard under pressure. If you got no time, work smarter than ever. Don't ever